Hello, everybody, and welcome to virtual wine tasting. I think this one's 51. And today we're going to be going over Pinot Noir. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing, especially for a person that kind of professes to loathe Pinot Noir, but it is Thanksgiving, and Pinot Noir is the wine of Thanksgiving. So on that note, do is share my screen out for you. All right. So, well, I'll just go straight into it. So, what is Pinot Noir? Because, well, I mean that's what we're here for. Now, I'm going to go a little, I want to say, wine nerdy into this. This will be the kind of things that you have to know for, say, like the WSET 3, at the very least. First and most important is that it's an early budder and early ripener. Now, early budding means that, well, during the winter, the vines, they go pretty much dormant. And what they're going to do is they're going to, and all the processes that are in those vines stop. Now, the thing is, though, is that because if those processes were going during a freeze, well, all of a sudden, like the water, everything else would just, just break through all of those cell walls and destroy the vines. It's actually why they say that after it starts to warm up, if all of a sudden they have a spring frost, that's the worst thing for a vineyard, because because they're now starting to liven up. Well, that frost is going to kill them, and so that's when all of a sudden, like, the heaters come out. They're putting tarps over top to hold on to heat. They're using sprinklers to keep things wet so there's no ice. There's all sorts of things that they do. But it also means that as soon as, and that threshold is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. As soon as it hits 50 degrees, that's when essentially that process will happen for all grapevines. Now, but when it says early bud, it means that, well, those things are going to start off very quickly, and all of a sudden vines start shooting out, and that process happens much faster than, say, like a Cabernet. The other part is ripening. Now, the reason why you want things to ripen quickly is, again, well, especially if you have a cold climate, well, you only might have, a growing season from May until maybe early September before it just gets cold enough to start, again, getting almost below, those thresholds for temperature. Another thing is that grape is thin-skinned comparatively to, say, like a Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah. All of those have very thick skins, and what that does is, allows them to have a little bit more pressure to hold all the stuff that's inside of those grapes. But it also means that they don't. I don't really know how to really kind of say, why thin skin, but it does make for less like less resources that are needed. And so again, that's where it's kind of coming into that whole like early ripening. But that thin skin also means that it's going to have like as soon as anything is wrong, like something hits it, it's much more fragile than, say, like a much tougher red grape. Now, and again, because of those first two things, early budding and ripening, and that thin skin, these are cool climate preference. So you're looking in colder regions where you're going to find Pinot Noir comparatively to like a really hot area, say, like, I don't know, Lodi, California, or central Australia. And the thing is, though, is that depending on, how cold it is, like if it's a really cold year or a really kind of warm-ish year, is really going to dramatically affect a lot of the flavors that are in that wine. As you can see here, very cool seasons result in like vegetal notes, especially like wet leaves and that cabbage, which is kind of it's not an unpleasant, but also not a pleasant note. And then if it's really hot, then you start to get into like super jammy, and it doesn't really have a lot of that kind of telltale acid that's in there. One that I kind of it's both good, but at the same time it doesn't really taste like Pinot Noir is Meiomi. It's a good Pinot Noir, but again, you ask anyone, like if you were trying to blind taste it, that thing is much more on the Merlot's inside of like body and jamminess than a typical Pinot Noir. And so, almost all the places that we'll be going through with all four of our wines, those colder climates, well, most of the other things that are planted right alongside it are Chardonnay, especially, even places like Champagne. So that's another place that has Pinot Noir, Champagne, or Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier, and those three are what make Champagne. But again, and the same thing with like Burgundy, the same with Sonoma, like all these places, those two almost have like the exact same temperature preference. And it's also known as, I think over in Italy, it's known as Pinot Nero. And over in Germany, it's Spätburgunder. So what makes it the Thanksgiving wine? So, well, let's go over like all of the main parts of Thanksgiving. So first is, well, the main dish, turkey. And the reason that red meat is such a good pairing with red wines is the proteins, especially those that are kind of bound up and form blood. And those proteins bind to tannins and soften the wine. Now, Pinot typically has light to medium tannins, which is why it's great with your heavier poultry, like turkey, and also some like pork items. Next is our mashed potatoes. And who says no to mashed potatoes? Especially when you have a savory gravy that's made from like the turkey drippings, which are pure fat. And fats are what are going to keep your palate shielded from the acid and alcohol of the wine. Next is your stuffing. And those savory herbs that are in the stuffing really complement those kind of greener, herbaceous notes that are in a cold weather, like a colder weather Pinot. Cranberry sauce, well, I mean, the fruit note, like the main fruit note of Pinots is red fruit. Now, sometimes it's cranberry, sometimes it's more cherry. Now, and either way, that red fruit note is going to shine with any version of the wine. And lastly, well, pumpkin pie. Now, a lot of Pinots are aged in at least a little bit in oak. Now, French oak will lend a bit more of those like exotic spice notes, while American oak will be more vanilla coconut, which will actually kind of go more with like the whipped cream that you would put on top. But the tannins themselves that are within the grape will also have kind of a spicy black or white pepper note. And on that note, we get to our first wine, which is our Rabbit Ranch. At least for me, it's the 2020 Pinot Noir. Now, this one, it's from a place that you might not think has anything else other than Sauv Blanc. But no, they really started to extend, so that they're not just a one-trick pony anymore. But as you can kind of see from, let me get out the little laser pointer here, is that, as you can see, Central Otago is is the southernmost area of the southern island of New Zealand. Now, and as you can also see, it's at negative 45 degrees latitude. And, well, what are other places that have on the northern side that have that same kind of latitude? Well, as you can see, Oregon, Piedmont, Ontario, and the Rhone Alps, which is like the Rhone area, that it's right up against the Alps, that are kind of going into Italy. Now, so some of the things, this will be something that I'm going to stress on every single one of these wines, is the temperatures. And because, again, these are cold climate, but there's kind of three things. So it's that the winters are going to get actually of all of the wines, the winters here actually get the coldest, at 30 degrees. Their summers get up to about, average of 77. But the key is during that growing phase, what's called the diurnal shift. So the amount from when it's late at night, the coldest of that day versus the warmest. And the greater that gap, the more complex and structured those wines tend to be. And this is what happens with, this is kind of like a rule of thumb for all wine grapes, is that the more of that distance between the two, especially during those key summer months, you're going to get just better wines. So let's go ahead and try our first wine. So we have our 2020 Rabbit Ranch. And we'll still be going through our evaluations. So go ahead and give it your 45-degree angle against a white background. And this, as much as I'm going to say, all it's a Pinot. So, typically these are going to be pale ruby. Though this, if you look along the edge of the rim when you hold it at that 45-degree angle, you start to see a little bit of like an orangish, like color to it. And so really what that, instead of it being classified as ruby, this is what you would classify as garnet. And that's it just showing its age, which for a 3-year-old wine is actually a little, I would be expecting this kind of like rim variation at more of like 4 to 5 years. So, but maybe that's just New Zealand being a little new at doing the Pinot Noir game. So let's go ahead and give it a swirl and a sniff. And what are we getting on the nose? Anyone? Oh, we got someone unmuting. Oh, well, what do you smell over there?
Cherry.
Said cherry or berry?
Cherry.
We got. What did you say? Leather,
Cranberry.
cranberry,
Forest floor.
forest floor, moss, dirt,
Forest floor.
rotten dirt. deer piss.
Yeah, there's definitely some loamy earth. Ah. All right. Well, are we getting any spices?
Yeah, I'm getting pepper.
So a little bit of pepper.
Yeah, I agree.
Now considering that we did see a bit of an age on this, you know, what we also should probably be expecting to smell is a little bit of either like leather, cherry cola. I don't know, I think it has a little bit of almost like a tea note to it. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. So cheers.
So far, the cheese is just the best. The lamb is okay.
Like the cheese better than the lamb. Wow.
With the,
So the wine, yeah.
oh, with this one.
Mm.
I like this one. I'm not a big fan.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of Pinot Noir to start with.
That's not terrible. Does anyone get anything different on the palate than from what they were smelling?
I'm getting chocolate and cola as well as cranberry and leather in the palate.
Okay. No, I could definitely see that. Well, a little bit of a format change that I've started doing with this is so after each wine is we kind of go through, well, what should we be, smelling and tasting for this wine, comparatively to, what we are, is there anything missing? And this kind of goes through the, almost like the rating, which is, that, well, your top rated Pinots are going to have every single one of these, notes to them in probably, like really big amounts, and then from there you start just knocking off points for things that are missing. It doesn't really have like a really lengthy, like finish to it, things like that. So, well, as you can kind of see, we should be looking for red fruit. Now, again, for colder weather, you're going to be looking for pomegranate and cranberry, which compared to, well, as we had kind of seen from, well, where Central Otago is and what its temperature's like, well, we would kind of expect this to be a much more colder weather. And that might be why we're, detecting a lot more of that pomegranate and cranberry than, say, well, though Tom did actually detect a bit of cherry. So, I mean, then it could be that you look, well, for 2020, where was the temperature at? And it may even be that, like that might have been a warmer year.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, well, then we'll go ahead and have try this with a couple of different foods, and if there's anything that really just strikes a chord, definitely say it out, say it out loud. But like one of the things that I would say, like is actually one of the like quintessential Pinot Noir dishes to have with it is like a mushroom risotto.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, and Skylar just said that, she had it with some black truffle cheddar cheese. And yeah, that was going to be, that was one of the things I had suggested as a food pairing was like mac and cheese, with truffle. Because, well, as we had kind of hinted at that, that wet forest floor, that loaminess, well, I mean, that is the flavor of truffle. And so those two things kind of, really go hand in hand. How are we doing on our wines? We about through?
Yeah, I am, we're ready.
Okay.
Anybody want me to rinse?
Sure. All right. So we are on to wine number 2, which is our Elk Cove Pinot Noir. And this is a 2021. So it's actually, it'll be newer than our last one. Now, this one is from Williamette Valley, which is in Oregon. Now, what makes it kind of, what kind of the factors for it being much more cool. This would actually be considered, well, I would think of it more maritime, in terms of that it has a lot of those cooling influencing factors from the Pacific Ocean, or pretty much, well, any body of water. And here, well, the temperatures, the lows actually get, they don't even get to freezing, which is probably one of the reasons why, Pinot does so well up there, is that there really isn't like a real fear of, it all of a sudden, as soon as it starts to warm up, and it having the ocean there as kind of like a buffer, there isn't a lot of fear that, there's going to be like all of a sudden a cold snap that's going to kill your vines. Now, here, well, your winters get down to about 36 degrees, and the summers get up to about 81, which is great. But as you can also kind of see, comparatively to the last one, which was 50 to 77, this is a little bit warmer, from 58 to 81 for your kind of like diurnal shift. So let's go ahead and pour us some Elk Cove. This is our Elk Cove 2021. And as we look at this one, so this is what I mean about, this one is actually just 1 year younger than our Rabbit Ranch, but I don't see a hint of like an orangish, browning at the top, which means that this, between just the production, how they bottled it, that there's no oxidation to this. This is what I would consider, and you can kind of see your finger through the bottom of it. So this would be classified as a pale ruby. So we'll go ahead and give it a swirl, and then give it a sniff. What are we getting on the nose here? This one I would put much more firmly in the, it definitely has a lot more like a cherry note. I wouldn't quite put it into like raspberry. But they're also, it doesn't have those signs of aging either. So there isn't a leather note. I do smell vanilla though. And if I was a betting man, this I think was done in American oak, because I swear I smell I smell just a hint of coconut. But there's definitely that like a cherry cola note to it on the end. Well, let's go ahead and give it a try. So, cheers. That's interesting. So this, for one, the first thing I notice is that it has much less acid than our last one. So it's a much smoother Pinot Noir. Not sure if I like that, but for those of you that, this would be much more of just like a drinkable by itself Pinot than, something that you almost kind of need food to add that protective layer. There's just a woody note. That's pretty much, it just tastes kind of like cedar. Yeah, I don't know if this one's, this one doesn't really stand out with anything that's, like amazing, but it's just I don't know, just a good drinkable red wine. And again, well, what should we be tasting on this? And in terms of red fruit, yeah, it kind of borders between, the cranberry and cherry. It takes me back to my childhood of, ocean spray cran raspberry or cran cherry. Now, one of the interesting things is that I don't really get a lot of that loamy earth note from this. Does anyone else? No, I'm like, if this to me tastes like a Beaujolais, like a good Beaujolais, because it doesn't have those like real earthy, notes to it, which is probably why I would like this comparatively to many of the other Pinots out there. Oh, anyone else have any comments on this particular wine? I'll take that as a no. Oh, see someone going up to unmute.
It's more like a dessert wine than the first one. Well, not
It goes very well with
but it's in that.
Yeah, I mean, me, I would classify this as I want to say like more balanced, but it definitely doesn't have that astringency that the last one did. But I mean, this, it almost tastes like I don't know, like if you have a cherry pie, the pretty much the goop that's not cherry in a cherry pie. Corey, we are on the Oregonian, so the Elk Cove.
Yeah, that's good. But like I said, I think I would just buy it if I just wanted to drink a bottle of wine. I don't know if I put it with
It's
my
like,
Not all things.
But well, time to see what this thing pairs with. I think it's definitely going to be a little different than the other one. I would not expect this to have any green notes. This tastes somewhat, I won't say overly ripe, but very ripe comparatively to the last one.
green at all for me. That's the powder, I think.
That's not how it's coming down.
I like it very much, but
I liked it with the data.
yeah.
The goat cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah. One, no, dessert. Correct.
Anything acidic.
Yeah.
Mm.
I really liked it before.
So I cooked up some Brussels sprouts with diced pancetta,
Oh,
and that is an excellent pairing.
Oh, no. We just have, they're just roasting.
there's
No,
bacon
it has
in our breakfast.
bacon
It's not
and-
pancetta, yeah.
Bacon and-
Definitely bacon.
And as much as I try to credit it to the pancetta, for some reason it's almost that flavor profile between the Brussels sprout and the pancetta that's really making this thing go past its limits.
Yeah.
So, this cheese, the other here, okay. Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Well, now to just the general.
Some breed.
Yeah. Where's the first one?
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say this one surprised me. You know, in terms of just that. And the weird thing is that I went all throughout Williamette Valley, and I tried like 25 different wineries, and not a one of them could give me a Pinot Noir that I liked. This I like. but again, this I think that they were trying to showcase Pinot Noirs that taste like Pinot Noirs, and this does not.
No comparisons.
Yeah.
You know, but it again, it's much like, you know, in the realm of Maomi, that, you know, probably this would on like a wine enthusiast. Actually, I would probably I think the people on Vivino rated this pretty high, but I would doubt that people on like Wine Enthusiast or Robert Parker would rate this as high, because it doesn't have all of those typical Pinot Noir characteristics.
Yeah.
But again, this reminds me of like Gamay or Beaujolais, which is the reason why I like, you know, I like Gamay, is and that's actually one of the things that you know, also grows in the exact same environment as Pinot Noir is Gamay. And like, I think every May, sounds like a whole bunch of rhyming. Every May in Willamette Valley is a hooray for Gamay. And they have like this whole event of everyone there that because there's a lot of a lot of the vineyards up there actually grow Gamay and produce, essentially almost a Beaujolais type wine. And that was the whole reason that brought me up to Willamette Valley at all, was after I heard that they grow Gamay up there. So, if for some reason, Pinot Noir is not your thing, check out their Gamay. But it also went really well with the cranberry goat cheese. Okay, I see a lot of empty glasses out there, so we shall move on to wine number 3.
All right. I even need a rinse this time.
So wine number 3 is our Stephanie's Cuvée Pinot Noir of 2018. Now this comes from the Russian River Valley. And it's pretty much another kind of coastal area. And it is the, I call it the gateway for the cooling coastal fog, because actually, let me get a pen in here. So all of this kind of breeze that's coming in from the Pacific Ocean, much like with Willamette, but it's real intense here. Now, up here is Napa, but really, this is the channel that it goes through before it then kind of goes up into where Napa is. Now, so before it even gets there and starts warming up, well, it's got to go through Russian River first. So that's why it's a much colder area. And again, Russian River, what is it known for in Sonoma? Chardonnays, Pinot Noirs. It gets pretty cold here, in terms of like 38 degrees. It's actually one of the warmer areas in terms of like, because that coastal fog, that's what's really cooling it down. But it's also, a pretty southern area compared to all the rest of these. And so it also gets really hot during the day. So compared to all the rest where the highs were in the 70s, well, now we've got a high, like average summer highs, 89 degrees. So, that's real warm. But, and again, it still has that diurnal shift. It's still 57 degrees on the low end, but now it's almost 90 degrees on the high end. So hopefully we should be expecting, a much more, complex and structured wine out of this one, comparatively to the last 2. So on that note, let us look at Stephanie's Cuvée 2018. And as we look at this one, so, and again, now for a 2018, this is what I expect. I expect that little bit of like an orange, piece right along the rim up here. And that's what we get. It's a little bit paler, it's a little bit orangish. In terms of its color, again, it's still pale, because you can still see almost your finger through it. But again, because it's got that bit of other colorization at the rim, again, this would be a pale garnet. So we'll give it a swirl and a sniff. And what are we getting? of all of these, I think this has the I want to say ripest fruit, because to me this smells like raspberries. But almost a touch floral. Like I'm picking up, it's almost like a violet. Maybe hibiscus. On the like wood side, I smell a, well, I mean, this thing definitely has like a black pepper spice to it, but it has a strong chocolate note. Though it almost kind of I want to say barney, but it does have like it has an earthy undertone to it. It's not like a strong Pinot, like dirt smell, but there's something with like just this weird funkiness to it. And lastly, yeah, this thing definitely has a like a leather. Yeah, leather and cola. But maybe it's because it has much more of a raspberry than a cherry note that I'm not really getting. I'm not really getting that cherry cola, that you would expect with that kind of thing. And again, as we're kind of looking through these, so again, we got our red fruit, got that little bit of funk. I'm not really detecting a lot of like vanilla on this at all, which has me suspect that this was not aged in oak. This just might be, an unoaked Pinot. Yeah, and it definitely has like that leather note that, again, kind of red fruit as it ages. Well, that's what it's going to really turn into is much more leather comparatively to a something with a much more dark fruit centric fruit note is going to turn more into like that savory meat characteristic than like new leather. Oh yeah, I totally forgot. We should probably taste this. So cheers. I was so fixated on the on the smell that I just totally forgot to drink it. I have that problem quite a bit, where I sit there and huff on the wine for like 10 minutes before the waiter will come back and be like, "How'd you enjoy the wine?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I'm still smelling it." So this one definitely has a bit more acid to it um, than our Elk Cove. So this one I kind of look at it as much more food ready, and kind of almost necessitates a little bit of food. Okay, so what's interesting is as I was kind of tasting through the, like parsing out the fruit. So it definitely has that raspberry, but I swear it's got a blue note to it that almost tastes like a little bit like blueberries. Yeah, so I'm not going to accuse them of darkening this with like a petite syrah, but possibly. if you're getting blue notes, well, I mean that's only going to come from a couple of wines or a couple of grapes, and it's your big boys. Yeah, it's going to be like your petite syrahs, maybe a syrah, and like you might be able to get it from like an overly ripe merlot. There's a lot more age on the palate than there was on the nose, so I can definitely taste a lot more of those kind of leathery notes than I could when I was smelling it. But on that note, since I see everyone else starting to tuck in, I think it's time for me to also see what foods out there go well with this. All right. Let us move on to our last wine of the night, which is our Sonoma Aubin au pied du Mont Chauve, which means at the foot of Bald Mountain. Now, this particular wine is from Burgundy. Now, Burgundy, it makes up a kind of a big area, but and the thing is though, is that you would think that with a red, you'd be, that the white, well, Burgundy is known for essentially two things. Well, much like everything, as I've been saying throughout the night, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Now, you would think that the Chardonnay, because of it being a white wine, would be much more north in Burgundy versus, the Pinot Noir stuff that would be in the south. Well, no, the majority. So up here in the north side is Côte de Nuit, and it, for the most part, it has like, I want to say it's like, yeah, according to the little map there, it produces 95% red. Now, when it says 95% red, for other than way down south in Beaujolais, all red, Pinot Noir. But there's also Côte de Beaune, which is actually south, as you can see, I kind of see here, which is the primary, other than Côte Chalonnais, it's your major producer of like your Chardonnays. So when you see white Chardonnay or white Burgundy versus red Burgundy, for the most part, when you see white Burgundy, well, it's going to come from either Côte de Beaune or Côte Chalonnaise. Versus, if it's a Pinot Noir, for the most part, it's probably going to come from Côte de Nuit. But, well, as you can kind of see from our little circle here, one of the major kind of villages is Chasson-Montrachet. Now, there's actually two of them. There's also Poligny Montrachet. So both of them are, there's a one particular chateau, just Chateau Montrachet, and villages kind of see this Grand Cru village or winemaker, and they kind of attach themselves to it. And so, well, that's how you get these villages called, Poligny, Montrachet, Sachon, Montrachet, but also up top, you start to see like Gevrey-Chambertin. That's also another, really, like high class. Gevrey-Chambertin, if I remember, just below there is Vosny Romani. That's the place. That's where Domaine Romani Conti is, which is the most expensive Pinot Noir that gets produced. It's usually, for the longest time, it was the most expensive wine ever produced. But the thing is, though, is that comparatively to everybody else, you can kind of see here, it's actually 2 degrees more north than all the rest of the places that we've talked about. So you would think, well, it being that much more north, it's going to be colder. But comparatively to all the rest of them, there's no water around it. This is very landlocked. All the rest of them, have an ocean like sitting right next to them. So there's like a cooling breeze or something like that. No, these are just cold. But because it's landlocked, it also doesn't get cooled down by by those waters. And so you really don't have as much of a shift between them. And because it's continental, this is a place that really fears for those spring frosts, because there isn't just a main body of water to buffer against any like extreme weather shift. So there are many, I won't say many years, but there are quite a few years that Burgundy fears for those spring frosts that just kill vines. Now, it's temperatures. So the thing is, though, well, I mean, it is much farther north. So of all of them, their winters get much lower at 26 Fahrenheit. But that really isn't going to matter, because again, in the springtime, those vines aren't going to start growing until it gets to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So it really doesn't care how cold it gets. There could be snow, it could be 0 degrees, it could be below 0. Doesn't really care. But as soon as it gets above 50, well, all bets are off, and it needs to stay above 50 until it's ready to shut back down. Its highs are actually also the lowest of all the places. So it is cooler. And, but that shift is still about 20 degrees, between the day and night cycle during the summer. So it's still going to be, a fairly big shift for, which is what really kind of makes Burgundy reds, that much more, why they're sought after, because they're going to be, a bit more complex. So let us go ahead and try our St. Aubin Premier Cru. Now, this is a 2018. At least I think most of you have a 2018. All right. So as I'm looking at this, oh, wow. So first to note on this is that as I'm tipping it, I can't see my finger. So like I can see a bit of a shadow, but I can't see through this, in terms of, like seeing my finger underneath here. So to me, this, it's still got just the slightest orange at the rim. So this would be a medium garnet. So let's go ahead and give this thing a bit of a swirl and a sniff. Oh, that's different. So, of all of the ones that we've had tonight, this is our first and only of Old World. And we're starting to see the real difference is that New World, the main focus, like star of the show, up front with the microphone is all of the fruit. Old World, at most, it's level with the rest of the band. It's kind of in the back, and as it starts to age, that fruit note keeps going further and further back. And as I'm smelling this, like, fruit is not the first thing that I smell. Like, this smells like, it smells somewhere, like, well, I mean, Corey's saying cola. I'm getting much more like farm floor. I wouldn't quite call it barnyard. I wouldn't quite call it forest floor. But it's got like a gamey note to it. Now, somewhere in there is, I would still call this much more on the like pomegranate cranberry side, but it's hard to parse out. And there's also a chocolate note in there. All right. Well, I've teased you long enough. Let's go ahead and give this thing a try. So, cheers. Mm. Now that is freaking good. So, that red fruit, that kind of pomegranate and cranberry, come out a little bit more on the palate than it did on the nose. Hmm. There's definitely a white pepper note and some crazy other spices to it. Like, I'm getting like a little bit of like nutmeg and clove. And what almost seems like a hint of, yeah, it's almost eucalyptus. It's like a funky green note. Or, okay, that could be that vegetal note that was almost like cabbage, but not. I wouldn't quite call it cabbage, but maybe like a parsnip or kohlrabi. But yeah, so I mean, and again, what should we be smelling and tasting? Well, considering that this is a much more cold weather wine or area, the fact that this is not that kind of like heavy cherry and raspberry kind of on the riper side of red fruit. This definitely kind of shows much more of that cold weather. Like I said, I don't quite get there isn't a lot of mushroom. I mean, it like I said, it's got the funkness to it, but I'm not sure if I would classify it as mushroom, but maybe that's what funk is. Yeah. If there is any kind of vanilla, it's very light. Yeah, I don't quite get that. But I'm definitely getting a lot of spices and that hint of like leathery cola. But yeah, no, this is pretty excellent. Anyone else have any comments on the wine? Okay. Corey says it's amazing. I'm not sure if I quite put it in amazing category, but it is damn good. Well, I guess if you compare it to Pinots, yes, this is an amazing Pinot. In like, would I seek this out for anything other than Thanksgiving? Still probably not. And you're having it with fish with feta, or are those two things separate? Because I don't know how the pairing of fish and feta would. Those sound like a wrong combination. But on that note, well, time to see how it works with food. Okay, yeah, no, Brussels sprouts went with all of it. Like, apparently that is the food of the night, at least for me. Is that those Brussels sprouts with the pancetta? That was excellent. I see more votes for the cranberry goat cheese and also the Brussels. Skylar, I know you had some chocolates and some honey goat Gouda cheese. You have any just blown away winners? Oh, couldn't get. Oh, I feel sad. You should have pinged me to find you a good Burgundy in the area, because yeah, yeah. I mean, they've been at it for since at least the 1600s. Actually, I think even before then. I think the monks were doing Burgundy, during the Dark Ages, and they know how to do Pinot Noir. And this has definitely been, as much as like I could do without the Centro Otago one, but the other three, this has actually been a little enlightening towards Pinot Noir. Like I used to just really not like it, but that's the weird thing is that all three of the ones that I really like, well, they have the thing that I hate, or should I say, or they don't have the thing that I hate, which is that like strong, musty, like just dirt and mushroom that just that aren't on in these, and that just makes them great. But again, if I really want these flavors, and in like in a directed path where people have been developing those particular flavor profiles forever, well, again, I'm going to go to Beaujolais, because and for as a suggestion for those of you that are interested in Beaujolais, just remember the letter M. So there's 4 different regions within Beaujolais. 2 do things kind of like a light and fruity, and 2 do them much more structured and like highly complex and nuanced, because all of them grow gamay, but only 2 of them do things in they're making almost like premium gamay compared to just stuff you just drink every day. And those 2 places both begin with M. Now, as to what they're called, yes, I was going back through my memory. So one's called Moulin Vent, and the other one is called I just had it and then I lost it. It's just one word. It's not, because the other one is Moulin Vent. And the other one's like Morton, or something that doesn't sound French. But now I just want to go like look it up real quick. Beaujolais. Where is those areas? M. Where's the M's? Morgon. That's the other M. Morgon. Yeah, I'll show you guys. So there's the area. So there's your number 4, Moulin Avant, and number 7, Morgon. Now, yeah, because Brulé and Fleury, both of those, they I don't want to say specialize in, but they lean more towards lighter, fruitier Beaujolais comparatively to the 2 that start with M. So just remember M, and you can't go wrong. Well, on that note, I'll go ahead and close things out. So everyone wave goodbye to YouTube. So see ya.